Hi, everyone. Let's talk about Venus in her current journey. There are quite a few interesting things going on. So if you look at the screen, this is a chart simply, whoops, didn't mean to do that, for today. Zoom has just changed or updated their settings, so just bear with me while I navigate my way. Okay. There is Venus at 12 degrees of Cancer, tropical zodiac, and the Sun. So she's moving further away from the Sun, which means in a few days' time, she's going to be visible. But before I talk about that, just briefly, let's just rewind and note what's going on here. So if you see these nodes, which are called the moon's nodes, the south node is in Libra, which of course Venus rules Libra. Okay. And the north node is in Aries. And the Sun and Venus are basically at the midpoint, aren't they, of these nodes, because they are squaring the nodes. And a couple of things that's important to recognize about that, first of all, before I go into some themes, is this. What it's showing us is that basically, if we go back to April of this year, when we had the solar eclipse, total solar eclipse, and you can see there it is there, okay, sun-moon conjunction, which is a new moon, but it happened to be a total solar eclipse. I think we all remember that. So if we fast forward into the present, what's happened is the sun has, traveled through the zodiac and it's reached Cancer, which is the halfway point between the nodes, basically, right? So just keep that in mind. We are at the midpoint. So we're at the midpoint of solar eclipses, to put it quite simply, okay? And in October this year, that's when we have the next solar eclipse, which is in Libra. And that will be us returning back to the nodes again, as it were, right? It's a new moon, sun and moon conjunct the south node in Libra. So can you see from what I just showed you, if we go back to the Aries solar eclipse, there we were at the beginning again, if you like, conjunct the north node there, actually. Solar eclipse, sun's moved through Aries, Taurus, Gemini, halfway through Cancer practically at the moment. So it's basically at the middle of those nodes, isn't it? That's called a midpoint. So we're at the midpoint of eclipses, right? And once again, the next one is going to be in October, and then the sun will be in Libra. So relative to the present moment, what we have is we have the sun in Cancer at the midpoint of the lunar nodes, south node in Libra, north node in Aries, and Venus is in Cancer, so she's there as well at this midpoint, okay? And Venus is squaring the nodes. She has been squaring the nodes the past few days and will be squaring the nodes for several more days. And the sun is doing exactly the same thing. So there's two themes playing out here that connect actually to the solar eclipse that happened in April. And that's the sun's pathway. So we're at the middle point of that solar eclipse. So whatever that solar eclipse activated or began for you in your journey at that time, which does take some time for things to unfold and show up. Things don't show up on the day of the eclipse, for instance. Things can show up prior to the eclipse, They can show up very close to the eclipse date and post the eclipse date as well, which is why it can be very difficult to predict, the exact day of what's going to happen and which day it's going to happen. We just have to keep this open, broad kind of perspective, if you like, or feel into it and just observe, our own life and our own circumstances and see what has been manifesting and unfolding. But certainly when the sun gets to the midpoint, it's showing us that this is quite a critical point here, because we've passed the Aries solar eclipse. We're at the midpoint of the solar eclipse seasons, and the midpoint, and because the sun in Cancer is quite a critical place from the point of view of, summer and winter solstice, right? And the sun in Cancer, well, zero Cancers are, it's a cardinal critical degree. So it's quite a hot spot, if you like. And because we're in the middle of these eclipses, it really accentuates that sun in Cancer. All things Cancer, of course, which is safety, security, home, family, nurturing ourselves, taking care of ourselves, our family, our home life, things like that, right? The most obvious things of Cancer. But if you want to go deeper, then, it really has to do with our own evolutionary growth as we continue to build a deeper sense of security within, because that's the ultimate evolutionary journey for Cancer. It's not to try and, seek security outside of itself, but rather to find it within. It's a very difficult thing, and especially for Cancer, but that is the evolutionary intention. And so Venus being here, and I've spoken about Venus-Mercury conjunction in, I think, two or three videos ago. So, it's worth listening to that, because I spoke about Venus quite a lot and Mercury. But Venus at the moment is, literally square the nose. She's just gone past being, exact. So she's been within orb of this for several days now, and she will continue to be in orb of this for a few more days. And that's a really important passage relative to Venus for a few different reasons. First of all, as I said, she rules the South Node, and she is in Cancer, and she is still invisible. So it feels to me that what's really playing out here is this these themes of security, inner security, deep inner security, our whole everything to do with Venus, our Venusian life, our creativity, how we are creating through Venus in Cancer, which does have, again, a lot to do with our own sense of safety, sense of value and worth, of course, which is Venus, but how we are perhaps, how we are nurturing that, how we are really cultivating and nurturing that and taking care of that within ourselves at the moment. And whilst Venus is invisible, and I've said this several times in the last few months, when Venus is invisible, it is very much she's going through a death passage. So in plain English, that's a very inward process for our Venusian life, if you like. It's a reflective process. It's not a time, in other words, to be trying to initiate relationships, marriage, and things of that nature. It's a time to withdraw, reflect, and allow the natural process of what needs to be cleared and moved within us, so that we can be reborn when she is reborn as the evening star, which she will be. In Melbourne, Australia, it happens on the 4th of July. New York, USA, it's not too far away from that. I think it's like the following day. For many places on the earth, it will be in the first week of July. Okay, there are some places where that would differ, and of course I cannot I cannot give that information, because then I would need to look at every single location on Earth. And, that could take a very long time. And I don't know where everybody lives anyway. But as a general, you can take it as a general kind of, well, not kind of, as a general certainty that in the first week of July, our beautiful goddess will become visible as an evening star at the 19th degree of Cancer tropical zodiac. And I think whatever is happening at the moment, which there would be quite a few different things happening for us, which may have to do with home life, with family, with children, relationships, all those sorts of things. But very specifically, it does have to do with us paying attention to how are we taking care of ourselves, as opposed to perhaps expecting others to take care of us, or projecting what we expect from others, and so on and so forth, right? It is a very deep process with Venus in Cancer about recognizing that we need to be our own mother. That's another way of putting it. We need to take care of our own heart, our own emotional body, our own sensitivities, our own securities. We need to pay attention to what's rising within us, and how might we take care of that? How might we nurture that? That's really what's going on here. And also, because Venus is square the nodes, and the nodes are in the signs that correspond to our own self, Aries, and our relationships, Libra, there's this midpoint. When you see a planet squaring the nodes, traditionally it's called it's at the bends. That's what it's called. We otherwise call it a square, right? But it's at the bends. So there's something quite critical that's going on. That can be things or situations leaving our life. That could be things that really get quite highlighted during this time relative to these archetypes: Venus in Cancer, Sun in Cancer. And basically trying to get our attention as to how we are creatively taking care of ourselves, and what it is that we are trying to nurture in our life, basically. Because it is a square to the nodes and a square to the south node, that might mean parting ways with certain relationships. That would not be surprising at all, because from a collective perspective, and also from an individual perspective, we are collectively moving, with the energy and pattern and cycle of the North Node in Aries, which is the present and future direction, if you like. That doesn't necessarily mean that we abandon all our relationships or not care about our relationships. It's just really about finding our own new sense of identity in ourselves as we are growing through every relationship, whether we are in a personal, intimate relationship or just any other relationship. Relationships are relationships. Every interaction we have with somebody, we are relating with them, right? So it's a form of a relationship. There are many different types of relationships, but they are all relationships at the end of the day. So this energy of Cancer here, with the Sun at the bends and approaching Venus exactly just past the exact point, this is really speaking to how we are nurturing ourselves inwardly with our own sense of security and safety, how we are loving and valuing and placing worth on ourselves from a deep level of real security, as opposed to needing a relationship or needing somebody to shower us with all these Venusian things, be it material things or affection or love or whatever. I mean, all those things are great, and we all need those things as part of being human. But at the same time, we are also, regardless of how many relationships we are having or what we are seeking and what we are wanting and needing from others. Need is a very good word for Cancer, of course. Regardless of all of that, ultimately, we are walking our own path, and every single person and every single situation that's part of that path is really there as a mirror, some kind of mirror, only to point to us perhaps where we might further need to do some work on ourselves, where we further may need to grow. When something upsets us and angers us and antagonizes us, not in every single situation 100%, but just generally speaking, those kinds of situations, they're like teachers that are being sent to in front of you, to your path, to teach you something about yourself. So that's kind of what I see happening here with this Venus squaring the nodes. So how are we cultivating a strong sense of identity, knowing who we are, knowing what we stand for, who we stand for? How do we feel that sense of autonomy and confidence in our own beingness, Aries, And we may have had to leave certain relationships behind, South Node in Libra. And so Venus now at this midpoint would be highlighting a lot of those themes quite strongly. And the main thing that she's really trying to establish here in an inward way, because she's invisible, is how am I taking care of myself? How am I taking care of my body, my home, or my family as well? What am I doing to integrate that sense of safety within myself, regardless of relationships or not, regardless of anything that's going on externally or not? How am I tending to that inner emotional body, that inner landscape or garden? Garden is Venus, flowers. Just how am I tending to those very deep inner private needs and deep inner security? How am I tending to that, nurturing that, taking care of that? And how am I doing that, North Node in Aries, in a sense, in a way where I'm actually being true to myself, maintaining my own autonomy and freedom, things like that, right? So when Venus becomes visible, which is, so this is the Babylonian chart, although I have got it set on the tropical zodiac. So if I click on this button here, fix Babylonian, see things just kind of switched. You'd have to be watching the screen the entire time, but yeah, so things just switched to the Babylonian zodiac, right? And if I just click over here, they switch back to the tropical zodiac. In any case, whatever button you've highlighted, if you just go to this window down here, or rather when you hover the cursor over a particular point, it shows you on the left this little screen down here. So if I highlight Venus and you look to that little box, you can see that as of today, 27th of June, see Venus is highlighted in grey. That tells us that she's invisible as per this program, which is Rumen Kolev's program. He's an astronomer first and foremost. We are so lucky that he's created this program. And so it shows us exactly when Venus is invisible, when she will first become visible, when she will become, anytime she becomes visible, not only Venus, but every other planet as well. Anyway, I love that I can just see this on my screen so easily. So if I put my cursor over here, that's those little dotted lines, that's showing us, that's Venus's pathway there, right? Because this yellow circle, this is the ecliptic, basically, which is the sun's pathway. So Venus is sort of, shooting her beams over here, right, on the ecliptic. And so when we get it right exact where we need to, it shows us that at the moment, Venus is at 12 degrees of Cancer, which is correct. When we looked at solar fire a moment ago, we saw Venus was at 12 degrees of Cancer, right? And if you continue to look at that little box on the left-hand side, if you go right up to the top, it says Babylonian fixed. It shows us that in the Babylonian fixed zodiac, Venus is at 17 degrees of Gemini. And that's the beauty of this program as well, because I'm now working with the Babylonian zodiac as well as the tropical, because I'm finding incredible value in mixing the systems actually for different, looking at both systems in different ways for different reasons, but actually understanding and knowing, and I feel really deep in my heart and soul that both are extremely valid and extremely important, and one does not negate the other, not at all. It's just a question of understanding the differences between them and then how you might interpret that, which takes, I think, a long time to navigate through everything that entails, because it's a lot. So there's Venus, 27th of June, which is today. Now, if I just animate and click over, so I'm just going to click this arrow and take it forward. And as I continue, you can see Venus is still highlighted in gray. Okay, we're at the 2nd of July now. Look up here on the left-hand side. This is the window showing us the year, the time, the month and day, etc. So I'll just keep clicking over. Oops, I went past it. So here it is here on the 3rd of July for Melbourne, Australia. Okay, you can see there's the latitude and longitude. That's of Melbourne, Australia. Okay. And as I said, it's not very different to if you're close to New York, USA. And once again, it will be, in the first week of July for most locations, let's just say. And this is a big deal because this is Venus becoming visible after having been invisible, for almost 3 months. We've been going through this, death process, transformative process. I'm sure everyone's got different stories to tell. I certainly have. I've had lots of different experiences with Venus invisible. It's never an easy passage when Venus is invisible, but what I've learned through Babylonian astrology, at least in this longer passage of her invisibility, it is the more difficult one, because she becomes all these different divinities, like the Gorgon, Medusa, and Persephone, and Ishara, and Ereshkigal. These are all underworld, if you like, type of divinities. They belong in the underworld. They're very scorpionic. And thus why, when she's invisible for that amount of time, she's literally going through this scorpionic journey. It's Inanna basically descending through the 7 gates, and when she reaches the bottom, she gets killed. But then what happens? She gets reborn, right? That's what we're going through. So this little interval here with Venus squaring the nodes will be possibly highlighting a lot of things that connect to the solar eclipse that occurred in Aries, mainly because the sun is here in Cancer and we're at the midpoint of eclipses. So we're dealing with some things that maybe either started at that time or became critical at that time. And when planets are at the bends, those themes become more emphasized or more highlighted. And as the Sun and Venus both continue to move away from being at the bends, square the nodes, that's when more clarity and insight can actually come to us as well about what all these different things have meant. So if it still feels a bit you're not really certain on exactly what to do or what's going on, that's pretty normal, because Venus is squaring the nodes and so is the Sun, and the Sun is just approaching, really. So we've got about another week of this energy, and by that stage Venus becomes visible, so the energy totally shifts, from the 3rd and 4th of July onwards, relative to Venus things and relative to being at this midpoint of eclipses. The energy shifts, opens up, things start really moving forward for us, you know. And I'm personally, I can't wait for that, because I've got matters to do with my home. I have to move again, you know. So there's the Sun in Cancer, you know, at the midpoint of the nodes, which means it's we're at the midpoint of eclipses, and that eclipse, you know, in April, that was close to my birthday. So here it is, you know, here I am now with the Sun in Cancer, and I'm desperately trying to find a new home. And it's a very difficult thing because there's not many properties, there's a lot of competition, the rent is sky high. It's, you know, it's insanity. But I have faith, especially when Venus becomes visible, because Venus for me is my greater benefic, because I was born at night. And these are things that are worth really paying attention to as well. You know, if Venus is your greater benefic, then she's your lady, you know, she's the lordess, she's the queen of your life. You know, if you're born during the day, it's Jupiter, you know, he's the lord, he's the king of your life, as it were. These details which belong to what's called sect in astrology, SECT, are really, really important to pay attention to when you are trying to understand what's happening, you know, astronomically and astrologically, right? So that's really all I wanted to share today. And yeah, we've only got a few more days before she's reborn, and I just simply cannot wait for that. I'm just really, yeah, really cannot wait. Okay, so I will see you guys very, very soon. Sending you all so much love, and thanks for listening. And you know, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe to my channel. Oh yeah, here we go. I always forget to talk about really important things. I've got 2 courses available at the moment. Really great courses. You are welcome to email me if you want to know more about those. If you want to have a reading of some kind, there's, you know, literally, oh God, there's so many readings, so many different types of readings I offer and can do. What else can I say about any of that? I think that's it. Okay, I'll see you soon. Much love. Bye for now.